Shabbat Shalom. Good morning. Good to see you. Word? Glad you're here. Let's go to Matthew 24. I don't mean to brag, but I have lived through the 2002 West Nile virus that was meant to kill every one of us. I lived through the 2004 SARS scare, which was meant to kill us all. Through the 2005 bird flu. Through the 2009 swine flu. Through the 2014 Ebola virus. Through the 2016 Zika virus. It was spread by some mosquito, only one kind of mosquito, kind of a rare thing. And I'll live through the 2020 coronavirus as well. I cannot tell you how many economic disasters I have seen predicted in my lifetime that I've survived. I've lived through the Richard Nixon years where we were told to turn our heat down because the world was running out of fuel. I lived through the Jimmy Carter years where you had to wait in line to buy gas for your vehicle. And when interest rates on mortgages shot up into the high teens, I think it reached 18% at one time for a mortgage interest rate. I've lived through the threat of sea levels rising, through ice caps melting, through the threat of global warming and climate change, and through up-teen threats of communism and socialism. And I've noticed this, that if interest rates rise, somehow it's considered a bad thing. If interest rates drop, it's a bad thing. If the economy is booming, it's a bad thing because a crash is going to happen at any moment. If the economy is lagging, it's a bad thing and drastic changes need to take place. If any president or dictator in any country does something that others don't approve of, he's going to start World War III. In my lifetime, the media has warned me dozens of times that World War III was imminent. It goes on and on. Crisis after crisis, warning after warning, threat after threat, virus after virus, one political upheaval after another. Here's what Yeshua said to his disciples on the night that he was arrested. He said, "Behold, the hour comes, yea, is now come, that you shall be scattered, and every man to his own, and shall leave me alone. Yet I'm not alone, because the Father's with me. These things I've spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In the world you'll have tribulation. Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." What thing? He said, these things have I spoken that you might have peace. Go back and read John 14, John 15, John 16. And you'll find out what he spoke to them was, he said, a little while you're not going to see me, but in a little while you will. That's supposed to bring peace. He said, I'm going to send you the Comforter. That's meant to bring peace. He said, you can and will ask the Father for things in my name, and he'll do those things for you. That brings peace. He said, I'm the vine, you're the branches. That brings peace. He said, the world's going to hate you, but that's okay. It hated me too. You're going to be empowered to be witnesses for me. That brings peace. Listen carefully to his words. He said this, in the world, in John 16, in the world you'll have tribulation. Tribulations are times of great pressure. It is in times of tribulation and times of great pressure, he says, you will have peace if you'll listen to what I'm telling you. He said, be of good cheer. That's a horrible translation. A better translation of that Greek word would be this: be bold, be daring, be courageous. Our instruction for the end of the age is to be bold, daring, and courageous. Not timid, not fearful, not anxious. Bold, daring, courageous. About 4 o'clock this morning, I woke up with these words spoken by our Messiah in Matthew 24. I woke up with these words in my spirit, in my mind. He said this in Matthew 24, you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. And that went off inside of me as I woke up this morning. You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Notice he didn't say there are going to be wars and rumors of wars, or there's going to be wars and more wars. He didn't say that. He said you're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. What he's doing in Matthew 24 is addressing the power of words to frighten people. Do you get that? What we have to face in life as a rule is never as bad as what we imagined we were going to have to face based on what we had heard we were about to face. Words cause us to imagine, and what we imagine is usually far worse than what it ends up being. You shall hear, Messiah said. And no wonder in Mark 4 he said this, take heed what you hear. And then in Luke 8 he said, take heed how you hear. Because words have power to move you. So he said, take heed what you hear and take heed how you hear. We have to be diligent in both regards. Beware of what you listen to. Beware of how you listen to it. A better way of saying it would be this. Carefully examine what you are hearing and carefully examine how you are hearing it. Because this I have learned in my 61 years. There will never be a shortage of people who are warning you about some war, some disease, some group, some dictator, some politician, some virus, some contagious disease, or some economic collapse. There'll never be a shortage of people warning you about those things. There's never going to be a shortage of people warning you about how one or more of those things are going to cause the end of the world. So carefully examine what you're hearing and carefully examine how you hear it. Now let's read our text in Matthew 24, or start with it. Listen to Yeshua in verse 1. Yeshua went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. They wanted him to see how magnificent and beautiful it was. And Yeshua said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. He foresaw and foretold of a coming disaster. A very real disaster was going to be taking place. Rome would send troops into Jerusalem in the very near future, would destroy that temple, literally, as he said, not leaving one stone upon another, tearing it completely down. Well, when the disciples heard that, it raised questions among them, as they had many questions, or at least 3 questions, once they heard what he said. So let's read verse 3. He sat upon the Mount of Olives. The disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of your coming and of the end of the world? So let's mark their 3 questions. They're important to us. You just told us that the temple is going to be destroyed. When will that happen? Question number 2. Tied in with that, we expect some other big things to take place, like you returning. What shall be the sign of your coming? Number 3, what is the sign that the end of the world is here? I emphasize those 3 questions because those same 3 questions rise in our hearts every time we hear about the next coming catastrophe. Every time we hear about a catastrophe that's about to come on us, we have 3 questions. When's it going to happen? And it's got to be tied to Yeshua coming back. So what's the sign that he's returning? And the third question is, what is the sign that the end of the world is here? Every crisis we hear causes us to ask these same 3 questions. I wonder when that's going to happen. I wonder if it signals that Yeshua is coming back. And I wonder if this is finally the end of the world. Sure. Since those same questions arise in our hearts with every threat and crisis we hear about, I think Messiah's answer to those three questions ought to be of interest to us, don't you? I mean, if they're asking the same questions we ask, his answer should help us just like it helped them. So let's read his answer. Verse 4. Messiah answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in different places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that endures unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. There are some awesome, helpful instructions in those verses to help us know how to deal with all of the things we're told that's going on in the day in which we live. I want you to look at those verses that I just read, and I want you to tell me the first thing that Yeshua said we are to do when we hear of an impending disaster or of a crisis that's about to arise. What's the first thing? They said, when's that going to happen? He said, what's the first thing he told them they need to do? Take heed to what?
Don't let somebody deceive you.
There you go. They want to know about that temple being tore down. When is that going to take place? And his answer is, here's the main thing you need to be concerned with, guys. Take heed that no man deceives you. The greatest threat during times of threat is not the threat. The greatest threat in times of threat are those who will take advantage of that threat and deceive you. Politicians have a saying, and don't let a crisis go to waste. What do they mean by that? During times of crisis, you can get people to do things they wouldn't normally do. You can use that crisis to manipulate them to do things. So Messiah said, they said, when's that going to happen? He said, here's the first thing you guys need to know. Let no man deceive you. The greatest threat during a time of threat is not the threat. Do not let a man use words to influence you into some action that you would not have otherwise done. Do not let a man use that threat to seduce you to do something. Let's take the latest threat, the coronavirus. The whole purpose for them making known this threat of the coronavirus is not the danger of the virus itself. The whole purpose for this threat is to control or to produce certain actions. Fans are being forbidden to go to sporting events. Flights are being canceled. Travel is being banned. All of that has a financial impact. That was the purpose. But if you tell fans not to go to a sporting event and you don't manipulate them through some scare, they'll tell you go jump in the lake. They'll go to a sporting event if they want to. You tell people that you can't fly to such and such a place and there's no threat to manipulate them by, they tell you go jump in the lake, right? But you can manipulate their actions through fear, so they'll do exactly what you tell them to do, and you cause financial upheaval or economic impact. Every time somebody gets a fever, ache, or pain now, scared that they might have the coronavirus, they run to the medical establishments. Another financial impact. It's interesting that the first cases reported of the coronavirus in the U.S. were in states that Trump has refused to give federal grant money to unless they change their status from being a sanctuary state. He cut off federal funding to them. So you create this false pandemic of a coronavirus, trying to force the federal government to grant you money for a problem that's not really there. The threat's not really the issue. The issue is being able to use the threat of this crisis to manipulate people into actions you couldn't ordinarily get them to do. Our first responsibility in any time of crisis is to make sure that we do not get deceived by any man. Just because it's being said doesn't make it so. And let me remind you of what Peter said. Peter said this in 2 Peter 2:3. And through covetousness shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time lingers not, and their damnation slumbers not. Who's he talking about? Who's he saying will do that? You remember? I heard somebody say something. Who's going to make merchandise of you and use feigned words to do so?
False teachers.
False prophets. Prophets, teachers, preachers. Preachers have learned that fear sells. So preachers and teachers are getting on YouTube and Facebook and TV and telling people that they've had a dream or they've seen a vision or they got some new revelation in order that to get you to buy their DVD, where you will hear in greater detail what you need to do to prepare yourself for the coming crisis. Perry Stone's one of the worst. If you like him, that's your problem. He sells fear. He makes merchandise of people. He's not the only one, but he's a master at saying the right things to appeal to a wide array of different customers. He sees people as customers, and what he says and how he says it's determined by which group he's standing in front of. And he'll talk for 30 minutes and never tell you the answer that he promised you in the title of his message, because you got to buy his DVD to get the details on how to protect yourself. That's exactly what Peter meant when he said that through feigned words, they'll make merchandise of you. A lot of people are fearful right now, and the fear is being used by preachers to get views and to sell products. Read verse 5. What did Messiah warn us about in verse 5?
Many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ.
Saying what? I am Christos. What does Christos mean? Anointed. Notice it doesn't say, I am the Christos. They're not saying, I am the Messiah, or I am the anointed one. Messiah said they're going to come and they're going to say, I'm anointed. There's an anointing upon me, and you need to listen to what I say. Those claiming to be anointed are the main ones the Messiah warns us about. Not politicians, not the media, not the rulers. He's warning us about men claiming to be anointed and claiming that they represent Him. The disciples ask Him 3 questions, and His first response to them is, don't let any man deceive you, especially those who claim to be anointed. And He said there's many of them. Don't let them deceive you in times of crisis, because many will use that time to increase their viewings, increase their attendance, and increase your giving. So Messiah said, be careful what you hear and be careful how you hear it. Let no man deceive you, not a politician, not the CDC, not a doctor, especially not a preacher. So our first instruction from Yeshua concerning crises, impending crises, is to let no man deceive us. The second instruction is just as simple. His second instruction is, don't be troubled. He just told them every stone's going to be torn down from this place. Not a stone left upon another. And his second word of instruction to them is, guys, be not troubled. Verse 6, you'll hear wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet. And again, let's focus on that phrase. You shall hear of wars. You're going to hear about wars more than there are actually going to be wars. And this word wars doesn't just refer to battles that take place between nations. Listen to this. I'm going to read this to you out of James 4. James 4 says this. From whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence, even of your lusts that war in your members? You lust and have not, you kill and desire to have, you cannot obtain, you fight and war, yet you have not because you ask not. So when James said, from whence come wars and fightings among you, is he talking about wars between nations? No, he's talking about little interest groups within the assembly, or in the community, or in the city, fighting with one another. So when we go back here and we listen to what Messiah said, he said you're going to hear of wars. Don't think only in terms of one nation fighting against another nation. You're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. There's always some group fighting against another group. You got gun rights against gun control, pro-life versus abortionists, liberals versus conservatives. You got capitalists versus socialists. You got Republican versus Democrat. There's always one group pitted against another group. The lust in the hearts of certain ones causes them to war against the lust in the hearts of the others, according to James. You shall hear of wars. There is turmoil and upheaval in the world all the time. There's never a time that there's not some war, some battle, some crisis. The one that rages today is nothing new. It may have a different name than the one yesterday, but it's still just another crisis, another threat, another war, another battle. It's pointed out by Yeshua in the way that he said what he said. And let's again go focus on exactly how he said this. You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. The word translated rumors there is also translated as report. In the New Testament, it's translated as audience. It's translated as ears sometimes. But more often than not, this word is translated as hearing. Hearing. You know, the Bible verse, faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of YAHWEH. It's the same word translated as rumors here. But it wouldn't fit well there, would it? Faith comes by rumors. Right? No. This word means to hear something over and over and over. So Yeshua said, you shall hear of wars, and hearing and hearing and hearing of wars. In other words, there will never be a time that people are not talking about some war going on between one group or another group. You will hear about it over and over and over and over and over again. You will hear of it because the world is full of people controlled by their own lust, is what James said. So let's listen to what Yeshua said for us to do when we hear about it. He said, don't be troubled. Mark that down and go look it up yourself later. Look this word troubled up. Strong's gives this one word definition of that word. Strong says it means to clamor. Anybody know what the word clamor means? I think I remember hearing my parents every now and then say, "Stop clamoring around in there." What does it mean to clamor? Say again?
Make a lot of noise.
Thank you. Perfect. That's exactly what it means. Clamor means to make a lot of noise or to make a lot of racket. Yeshua said, you're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. Don't join in with all of that rhetoric. Yeah. Don't add noise to the noise. Don't parrot what you're hearing. Don't echo what they're saying. Be still. Be quiet. Listen. Not to the rhetoric. Listen for the voice of Yahweh. And you're not going to hear the voice of Yahweh if you're repeating the rhetoric you're hearing every day. In times of crisis, it's not going to be our canned goods that are going to save us. It's not going to be our stockpile of ammo that's going to save us. It's not going to be silver or gold that's going to save us. In time of crisis, there's only one thing that is going to deliver us, and it's going to be our ability to hear the voice of Yahweh and our willingness to do what He says do. Amen. Do not be moved into action by rhetoric. Be moved into action by what you hear from Yahweh. And again, just because a man claims to speak on his behalf doesn't mean that that's what he's doing. Let me give you a simple way to judge prophecy. Prophecy is a word spoken by Yahweh through a man. It's not a foretelling of the future, it's a foretelling of a revelation. Now, when a man is going to speak a word that he received from Yahweh, he may have heard it in his spirit, he may have heard it in a dream, or he may have seen it in a vision. Okay? Yahweh would speak to him in his spirit, through a dream, or through a vision. But not everyone who says that he had a dream or saw a vision or heard a word had a dream from Yahweh, saw a vision from Yahweh or heard a word from Yahweh. Okay? So how can you know if they did or not? They say, I'm anointed and I've had a dream. Or I'm anointed, I saw a vision. I'm anointed and I heard the Spirit of Yahweh say to me. How do you know whether they really did or not? Let's start with this. If they reject the Sabbath, they're not prophesying for Yahweh. Run that test. Are they saying that the Sabbath has been replaced? Torah says that it hasn't. Are they saying it has? If they're saying that the Sabbath has been eliminated, I don't care how many times they're telling you they're anointed and how many dreams they're telling you they've had. Why would you listen to them? If they reject the law, if they embrace pagan holidays, why in the world would you think that Yahweh would choose them to deliver His message to you about anything that's about to happen in the world? We hear of wars and we continue hearing of wars. Our duty is simple. Be not troubled. Don't add to the rhetoric. Don't echo what you're hearing. Listen to Yahweh. Listen for Yahweh. You cannot hear what He's saying if there are too many other voices you're listening to. Look in verse 7. Nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in different places. All of these are the beginning of sorrows. Look the word translated as nation up. It'll help a lot in understanding this instruction. It's the Greek word ethnos, from which we get our word ethnicity. It refers to race. This word is translated in the Bible as heathen. It's translated as people. It's translated as Gentiles 93 times. And this word then, Gentiles, and this word refers to any group of people that's not of Israel. Any group of people. In Acts, we read this about Simon the sorcerer. It says this in Acts 8. But there was a certain man called Simon, which before time in the same city used sorcery and bewitched the people of Samaria. The word translated people, there's this same word ethnos. So he bewitched the people of Samaria. In no way is that saying he bewitched all of the nations that were in Samaria. No. He's talking about all the different people groups, the different races, the different ethnicities that were in Samaria. He bewitched them. So Messiah isn't talking about a nation fighting against a nation as much as he's talking about groups of people fighting against other groups of people. Races are going to fight against races. Groups are going to fight against groups. Tribes are going to rise against tribes. So let's summarize what he said. He said, you will always hear and keep hearing about this group fighting against that group. There's always going to be turmoil. And then he says this. He said there will be famines, plural. So a famine doesn't signify or signal the end of the world. There will be famines, plural. And there will be pestilences, plural. Pestilences refers to plagues or diseases. That's the reason in my lifetime we've had 6 or 8 that were going to end the world. Pestilences, plural. There will be earthquakes, plural. One famine doesn't signal the end of the world. One pestilence does not signal the end of the world. Whether it's the bird flu, the swine flu, Zika, coronavirus, doesn't matter. That doesn't signal the end of the world. And one earthquake does not signal the end of the world. There will be many. So Messiah says, do not allow the hearing of those things cause you to join in that rhetoric. Be still and listen. In this passage we have 3 instructions and we've seen 2 of them already. Not what you would expect. Certainly it wasn't, well men, if y'all want to know when that's going to be and what's going to be the sign of my coming and what shall be the sign of the end of the world, y'all going to have to buy my DVD set. No, he gave them 3 simple instructions. 1, don't let a man deceive you. 2, don't be troubled. And then his third one is just as simple. His third instruction is make sure you endure. When shall be the end of the world? Your concern, guys, needs to be that you endure to whenever that is. Verse 9, and we're going to read it again. They'll deliver you up to be afflicted. They'll kill you. You shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and hate one another. Many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. This word translated endure means have fortitude in the face of all the chaos in the world. Have fortitude in the face of the rejection and hatred that's going to be directed at you. Persevere through every hardship that you're going to have to face. Endure affliction, the Bible says, not avoid it. Endure affliction. Stand up under it without collapsing. Don't let your hope collapse. Don't let your faith collapse. Don't let your dedication collapse. Don't let your determination collapse. Endure to the end. Well, when will the end come? He's told us plainly when it will come. When the gospel of the kingdom is preached to every ethnicity, to every ethnos. When the gospel of the kingdom is preached to everyone, every tribe, every group of people, that's when the end will come. All right, so the next question is, how can we know when that's been accomplished? That's exactly the message he's teaching and preaching. The answer is, you can't know. You can't know when that's accomplished. So in the middle, or in the face, let's say it that way, in the face of every threat and in the face of every crisis, here's what you have to do. Don't be deceived, don't be troubled, and don't stop following Yeshua. Yes, Yahweh might tell you to store up food. Yes, Yahweh might tell you to store up ammo. Yes, Yahweh might tell you to store up precious metals. But listen to Him and listen for Him. There is a great deal of difference. If you don't get anything else I said today, please get this. There's a great deal of difference between a word of prophecy and some man's speculation. Well, I have looked at this, and this, and I speculate that the world's going to come to an end next month. It's speculation. Well, I've looked at all of this, and the economy has to crash by the end of March. It's speculation. There's a great deal of difference between Yahweh telling a man something or telling you something and some man speculating about how it's going to be. Don't be manipulated by men or media. Don't be manipulated by politicians or preachers. Don't be deceived by men. Don't be troubled by events. And don't stop living for Yeshua no matter how much opposition you get. They had 3 questions. He had 3 answers. Right? When is that going to happen? I wonder if that signals you're returning. I wonder if it signals the end of the world. He said, guys, let no man deceive you. Don't join in the rhetoric. Right? Don't join in the rhetoric. And you just keep following me no matter how hard it gets. It can't get any simpler than that, folks. Stand up. I'm not trying to make light of anything that we face in the world. So please don't misunderstand me. The Bible warns us that we live in perilous times. We always have to be aware that we're living in perilous times. But the thing we need in perilous times more than anything else is to be tuned in so that we can hear the voice of Yahweh and make sure we're walking in obedience to Him. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. As His name is put upon you, so shall He Himself bless you. And your name is on, His name is on you. His name is on you. You endure to the end. What He needs to get you to do, He'll tell you. In a dream, in a vision, while studying the Bible, in your quiet time, while you're driving down the road minding your own business. Whatever it is He needs to get to you, He'll get it to you because He loves you. You're dismissed. Shabbat Shalom.